That's what Gamecock baseball is used to. 12-1 last night in Charleston over the Citadel. Jacob Olson leading the way with 5 RBI. It's one of a result that we haven't seen very often this year, Bill, and one that I think Mark Kingston and company would love to get used to, especially in these midweek games against smaller in-state opponents. But last night, a step in the right direction, doing it on the road. Another thing that we haven't seen very often this year, only the second road win so far for USC baseball this year.
Oh, yeah, so it was a great game, 12-1. Gamecocks finally win, but more importantly, man, the Stanley Cup playoffs are tonight. I mean, there's this article right here on ESPN.com. Hype rankings, which series are must-see? I mean, don't get me wrong. Big win for the Gamecocks last night. But, man, Stanley Cup playoffs, big night, big week. Very excited.
You get confused? Did you think you were coming to work in Columbus, Ohio instead of Columbia, South Carolina?
Oh, you're talking about those Blue Jackets, huh? Yeah, the Blue Jackets, big series this weekend.
I only did that because it's the closest name to Columbia. I had no idea that the Blue Jackets were even in the NHL playoffs.
Of course they are, Tim. They're playing the Washington Capitals. Ovechkin.
I was only 75% sure they still had an NHL team actually in Columbus, Ohio.
Now, if he didn't have his phone in front of him, could he read any of this? Or would he know any of this?
Oh, he wouldn't know any of it. That's for sure.
See, this is why the people don't believe y'all. One morning it's the iPad, one morning it's the phone. They don't know what's going on in here. Man, I'm fired up. NHL playoffs, South Carolina with a victory last night, final night of the NBA regular season. I was soccer coach last night.
Oh, boy.
I think this is going to be more of a soccer and hockey 3 hours. You guys ready for that? I've been fired up since
with your mic off?
Good game for the Gamecocks last night. They needed more of that. That should give them a little momentum heading into the weekend series against Arkansas here. What's the weather forecast? Should you guys see the spring game out in Arkansas this past weekend?
No. Why would I have watched the spring game out in Arkansas? I really wanted to see Chad Morris and company in a scrimmage.
Some of us do a prep during the weekend.
For Arkansas spring football?
Well, you got to get ready for SEC play and SEC Media Day. How am I going to vote properly at SEC Media Day if I didn't watch the spring game and get all the details of how the spring game looked? It was cold. The answer to the question is it was cold. It was almost on the verge of snowing, I believe, and I'm wondering what the weather will be like out in Fayetteville this coming weekend for the Gamecocks and the Razorbacks. But certainly in terms of getting back into a little bit of moment, I don't know. You know what? To be quite honest with this team, though, think about the last 4 games. They lose 14-1. They win 15-1. They lose. What was the final on Friday? 10-5, I believe. I believe it was that right.
Okay, you got me way off kilter.
Excuse me, final on Sunday. Yeah,
gotcha.
10-5.
Yep.
And then you come back and win 12-1.
Right.
I mean, those are some wild swings in.
So either there's been double-digit offense, or you've given up double-digit runs and 1 run. And you've scored double-digit runs and given up 1 run, or you've basically scored a run and given up double digits.
Exactly. It's just. I think it's what we all agree is right now with this baseball team is inconsistency. Good enough to be right there to win a series against Clemson in Florida, bad enough to lose to in-state teams that you shouldn't be losing to. And that's kind of where this baseball program is right now, is an inconsistent group, and you don't know what's going to really show up. Will you get good Adam Hill, who's been good enough to put you in his positions to beat Clemson and beat Florida? Or are you going to get the guy who lost to VMI in the opener and got pounded around by Kentucky on last Friday night? It's a weird season to me to watch this baseball team because you really don't know what you're going to count on a night-in, night-out basis.
Jacob Olson, career-high 5 RBI. That gives him 9 RBI in his last 2 games at Joe Riley Park against the Citadel. He likes to hit there. He had a home run that gave the Gamecocks a 4-0 lead relatively early on, and Carmen Majinski doing most of the solid work on the mound, 5 strong innings. He's a guy that Carolina could really use more production from. He's gotten a lot of chances in his freshman season. He's from down in Hilton Head, was the player of the year in the state of South Carolina, throws really hard, has had some control issues, not an issue last night. 5 innings, 5 strikeouts, walks just 1. Again, 12-1 the final score. The Gamecocks get 7 runs in the 7th inning to blow this thing wide open and get the midweek win. I was going to say rare. That's not fair, but it has been kind of a 50-50 proposition this year, and certainly exemplifies the first-year issues that Mark Kingston has kind of stepped right into in year number 1 with the Gamecocks. But a good win last night, and now, like Bill mentioned, headed to Arkansas this weekend. I'm instead of the weather, I'm much more interested to see how this Gamecock team does against one of the best teams at baseball in college baseball this year, which is what Arkansas is, and doing it in a very hostile environment. Arkansas, I think, is more representative of SEC baseball than South Carolina has been in the last 2 decades. Arkansas has had some really good years and some down years. The Gamecocks have been consistently top shelf the entire past 2 decades, basically outside maybe the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. But now I think South Carolina is going through what Arkansas has been through, and I feel like more SEC baseball programs have been through that, and now it looks like Arkansas kind of coming out on the other end of it, at least so far this year.
Yeah, 78. Thank you to Jen Jensen for sending me the high for the weekend, 70. It's going to be very nice there this weekend. You say you're interested to see them. South Carolina has performed at times well enough to compete with the nation's best, but they haven't been able to get kind of over the hump this season. That's been a growing trend the last several years. Again, to me, it comes back to the competitive nature and fire of this baseball team. You know, they took it on the chin against North Carolina a week ago, last, I think, Tuesday night it was. And then the question was, okay, well, how do they bounce back? You had that game, and you had the game. You were up. Then it was 3-3 in the 8th, and you end up losing 11-3. You give up 10 unanswered runs. So going into Friday's game against Kentucky, I said, okay, kind of intrigued to see what kind of moxie and spirit and fire this team has. And I look at the scoreboard late Friday night, and they lose 14-1. You go, ooh, that's not good. This team's pretty much ready to pack it in. Then I look at the scoreboard on Saturday, and it's 15-1 in the opposite direction, and you go, ooh, okay.
It makes no sense at all.
I mean, it doesn't. And so you come off of this one, now you go on the road to a really good team. And if anybody out there, including Mark Kingston, knows what his team is going to do or what you can count on this weekend, please let us know, because I think that's just where we are with this baseball team. There is not one thing to me that you can go, okay, you know you're going to get this. Now you just got to make up for it in the other areas.
And your hockey playoffs start tonight.
Oh, man, John Tortorella. I'm telling you, these Blue Jackets, I'm glad you brought that up to start the show. The Blue Jackets and the Capitals tonight. John Tortorella, the coach for the Blue Jackets, 6th time he's faced the Capitals. This is pretty intense. Threw a water bottle at a fan a couple years ago, a Capitals fan. Those Capital fans are nasty. You talk about Arkansas fans, Capital fans right there next to them. It's well known in the sporting world, Tim.
Mm-hmm. In the Bill Gunter sporting world.
He also Tortorella got into a heated exchange with Alex Ovechkin earlier this year. Tortorella's a good guy. He apologized, though.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. That is great. He does seem like a really good guy.
He is. He comes across. I mean, he comes across as a good guy. And then you got, I tell you what, man, you got this series. This is typical NHL playoff series, Penguins and Flyers. I mean, you got two heavyweights of the sports, Titans of the NHL going against each other in the first round. It's number 3 on the hype rankings, too. Don't worry, I'll tell you.
Can you name one Philadelphia Flyer player?
Claude.
Claude, huh? Good old Claude for the Flyers. That's Bill Gunter, who somehow came to hockey later in life, which brings up the question, what sport did you come to later on in life, if any? I think you made a lot of people turn away from hockey playoffs just by this intro, this last segment here.
It's going to be good times, man. Bruins and Maple Leafs, opening round. I mean, could you ask for anything better? He's number 1 on the hype rankings.
Oh, number 1 on the hype rankings.
I'm telling you, this is Bruins, Maple Leafs. This is 2 old school NHL organizations going against each other.
I think you're number 1 on the hype rankings.
Oh, well done, Jen. Yeah. Jen, well played. Excellent work. We're off to some kind of start this morning.
Well, we've covered it a couple times, but yeah, now my hockey fandom started a couple years ago, I guess, about 2015, I guess, because a buddy of mine, a real good friend of mine, moved down to Tampa, and as he does pretty much anywhere, when a local team is winning, he belly flopped onto the bandwagon and purchased season tickets. And again, if the Lightning had been a middle of the pack team, he would have ignored them, but they were winning their divisional championship. And
keep in mind, this not thinly veiled shot is coming from a New York Yankee fan.
I've been there all my life, man.
A Miami Heat fan.
Been there since the Cycli days.
A Michigan basketball fan who wasn't pulling for them to win the national championship necessarily.
Bad 5 days. I've been there. I've been around these programs, organizations. Andy, a person you met on a flight, just shows up in Tampa and starts rooting for the local team.
I think that's a pretty standard deal, right, Jen? I mean, you're not from the state of South Carolina, right?
No. Mm-mm.
And yet, when you and your family move here, it's one of those things. We hear it from callers pretty often who are transplants. So you move here, you start pulling for the local team. That's just what
pretty
you
much,
do.
You know,
He doesn't
we
pull
knew we
for
had
the
a
Rays
choice.
or the Bucks down there.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So he latched onto the winner. So that particular playoff, so I was getting text messages nightly informing me that his Lightning were doing very well. That was quite annoying. So I just started rooting against pretty much anybody that they were playing. And it turns out, in all seriousness, that playoff hockey is actually really entertaining. I mean, you compare it to kind of like, I'll get into the NBA playoffs. The last few years, I think they've been hit or miss. The NBA playoffs have been either pretty good, or I think a year ago they were pretty bad. Major League Baseball playoffs, I'll try to get into. Anything that professional sports that have the long season, the hockey, the baseball, obviously the basketball, you kind of lose interest, right? Like, all right, I was invested in Major League Baseball for a couple of days. I watched a game. I had it on television. I shouldn't say I was watching it, but I had it on television the other night. But you kind of zone out for about the middle months of that season, or after opening night or opening day or whatever, and then you come back for the playoffs. And I've got to admit that one thing that hockey playoffs are just they're low scoring, so it's generally pretty close. The intensity in the arena, the intensity on the ice is just even coming through the television. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I've been to multiple playoff hockey games, but it really is kind of entertaining to watch. I do wish I had more of a rooting interest in one of these organizations. I guess growing up, I actually had some relatives that lived in Chicago, and they sent me a Blackhawks jersey, and that was I guess I kind of like the Blackhawks, but
It didn't take?
it didn't. Yeah, back then, like you said, you come to it later in life. I mean, it was like, what's a sweater, huh? Okay, sure, I'll put it over there. It was all right. That's nice. But my son has actually gotten really into hockey. I bought him when I went down for this said buddy's wedding last February of 2017. We went to a hockey game, and I bought Austin, my little 5-year-old. I bought him a stick and some of the little like styrofoam type pucks or something he can play around the house. And
You bought a 5-year-old a stick.
well, they're kind of like souvenir. They've got the lightning symbol on them, and it's actually a pretty nice little set. And he can play around the house with them, and it's pretty good. And
I
then
was thinking a weapon. More,
no, not we. I didn't go outside. Yeah, that would be a real cheap parent. Just go outside and break a stick off a tree and be like, "Here, son. This is from Tampa."
Carve in a
Lightning
little
is in
lightning thing with like a little knife. Like
Go fetch.
The natural sign for the bat.
Here, son. Yes. No, but it was. But he's got, and so he kind of got into it, and then we, of course, back in February, took him to a Hurricanes game, and he enjoyed that, and he's got some Hurricanes gear now. And then my buddy Andy actually sent Austin a sweater, the jersey for the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's a little big for him right now, but he's got. I mean, it's just. I'll say this. You're right. Coming into the sport late, and I'm not gonna. We can sit here and cut up all morning about me reading off of ESPN.com these hype rankings and giving. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I don't even understand most of the rules. I totally don't get icing.
It's not that complicated, man. It's just.
What is icing?
It can't go over 2 blue lines, basically. The puck.
The puck can't?
Right.
Gotcha. Learn something new every day. I mean, but it's coming. You're right. It's coming. Like soccer, I grew up playing. Soccer, I really did grow up. I grew up playing, and I understand the sport. That doesn't mean that the Premier League or whatever is on Saturday mornings or Sundays or whenever. I don't go, oh, man, got to get up. I'm not Pearson or Jay. I don't wake up or stay up or do it. But last night we had Austin's first soccer practice, and so I got involved in coaching that a little bit. But I understand soccer, but I've been around that sport. I still remember South Carolina, I believe I want to say around 92, 94, somewhere in there, playing in the national championship game against Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. And so I've always been around soccer. UFC, I haven't gotten, I just haven't, if it's a big match, and I kind of hate to say it because of what he just went through, but if it's a name, Conor McGregor or.
What do you mean what he just went through?
Well, because I feel like you're only pulling for kind of the bad guy. You're only I'm sure there are a lot of other good UFC fighters that maybe I should take. If you were going to get into that sport, you should take an interest in. But I don't have I don't have an interest in that. Maybe the only other one you could make the case for is not so much playing, but watching golf. I mean, I've gotten I would watch. I was more of the casual fan in high school and college. I played it a lot more. Now I'll probably reverse that. I play it less, but watch it more. I'll kind of Saturday or Sunday, I'll usually take an hour to watch whatever golf tournament's on. So I would say, but hockey is definitely, when you define how you put this poll out, I've come to hockey. I've started watching hockey far more in the last 4 or 5 years as I've gotten into my 30s than I have at any point in time. And I watch the playoff hockey, but again, it's entertaining television. It's fascinating to watch.
You didn't grow up watching any hockey, right?
I mean, living here in Lexington, South Carolina, no. I mean, I don't,
because Columbia Inferno was not around in your high school.
I mean, I went.
Right?
They were
maybe at the end of your high school.
End of high school, maybe the very beginning of college, because I do remember. I don't think.
Because that was all my only introduction to hockey, the ECHL. Growing up in Greensboro, they had the Monarchs, I think. So we would go in high school. Maybe I think I might have gone my first time in middle school, and I was like, this is all right. Whoa, they're fighting now?
Yeah.
This is different. I didn't know you were allowed to do that in sports. And then you see, like, that's the only time the crowd really gets involved, other than a goal, is like if there's a fight. I thought it was kind of odd. It went against everything I had been taught about sports.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I got out of college and went to an NHL game for the first time, I was like, whoa, this is not the ECHL. There is a huge difference in skill and the fluidity of the game. It was fantastic. And then being around some hockey fans that try to recruit you. I feel like they all try to do that, right?
Yeah.
If like my buddy was a Blues fan, so I had to. I mean, he literally had the foghorn in his apartment and would blow it when they scored a goal. He was that kid, but it was infectious to get involved in playoff hockey. And if you do kind of flip over on the remote control, and you're not expected to get invested, you can get sucked in pretty quick in playoff hockey, in my opinion.
No, I'm totally with you.
Man.
You know, again, I can sit here and joke all I want about the hockey and everything. Playoff hockey's fun. I mean, and you get a group of guys. I think the other thing was a couple years ago we went on a guys golfing weekend, and it was right there at the beginning. We went on a guys golfing weekend, and we got into the weekend hockey. And because it's a guys golfing weekend, there might have been some in-house wagers going on with regards to the teams and the actual games. And you do, it's an intense sport, and I've gotten to enjoy it. I'll actually look forward to tonight. Again, I don't have a organization that I'm like, okay, I'd like to see that one win. I know which one I would like to not see win, but other than that, when you define that poll question, I've definitely become more of a hockey fan later in life, and it's translated down to the 5-year-old. He's actually, surprisingly, he can. Cam Ward, the goalie for the Hurricanes. He knows exactly who that is, knows a lot about him. I couldn't have told you a single hockey player outside of whoever was on a video game growing up.
I knew Wayne Gretzky, and that was about it.
And Mario Lemieux.
There you go. Yeah. Your son will have a different experience growing up because there is more hockey exposure, I think, in our area just because the Carolina Hurricanes kind of trickles down. And it's certainly having an NHL franchise not too far away is a different experience. It's a lot like when we grew up, the Carolina Panthers weren't an option. So there weren't a lot of Carolina Panthers fans just inherently in the area because it was a college team first and then an NFL team from somewhere else. I watched the Redskins because that was the closest one around here. Some Falcons fans because that was another close one to where we were. But besides that, there was no regional reason to pull for a team. But I think in hockey in the last, 2 decades now, it's a little different with the Carolina Hurricanes near. Jen, interested to hear your hockey background when we come up growing up in the Midwest in the cold. And also, if you choose other on our Frank's Discount Tire poll question this morning, would love to get a write-in vote for you. For instance, Brad went with curling.
You know what?
The sport he came to later in life.
That's honestly, now the only reason I wouldn't say curling on that is because we only get involved in that once every 4 years. I mean, you're not out seeking. I'm assuming sometime during the week you're not checking out the local viewing listings, going, all right, when is the next big curling match?
Oh, now you're just asking for people to hit you with the details of the international curling leagues that are out there.
Or just the American. Let's start with home base first, and then let's work out to international. But if there's some international or American League curling going on, somebody fill us in. But no, that's actually a really good one because I do kind of agree. Curling has become popular because of the Olympics and because that's a sport that we all look at and be like, yeah, I can do that, right? Like, I mean, there's really mop the ice as you go down
Sweep.
and move.
Come on, that's a sweep.
Sweep, mop, whatever.
If you've played shuffleboard and you know how to sweep, I feel like you have the tools necessary for curling. Maybe a lot of patience involved too. A lot of people, I guess, in this country or towards the northern part of the country grow up on skates. Like some people say they can skate before they can walk kind of thing.
Right.
That is a foreign concept to me, man.
It's like I'll watch the ESPN, they'll have the little video like the 4-year-old. Like I grasp the 4-year-old or the 5-year-old, the extremely young child who can dribble a basketball. You're like, man, that's pretty amazing. Like, okay, I get that. But then they'll show the 5-year-old that's skating and it's got the stick and it's twirling around you. Like the abnormally athletic child that the parent's been working with, like you said, that basically they 2 days old and they put skates on them and like, all right, go get them, son or daughter. That blows me away because if you've seen me skate when they have the skating rink down here, right downtown Columbia, and you're like, oh, my goodness.
But you've tried it?
Oh, yeah.
You've tried the ice skating
date
before?
night down there? Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a dangerous date night because it's 50-50 chance of ending up in the ER, but
that's braver than me.
and
Wow.
also
That's
and also the
Blue.
people on the ice are in danger of me taking them out.
Right.
But yeah, skating, man. I mean, have you tried to skate? Like,
No,
have you gotten
never
on?
tried to ice skate.
Really?
Never. No, that's one of those things where I just feel like I've come to the place in life, like I'm 40. I'm like, yep, pass me by.
Exactly.
I tried snowboarding when I was in college. That was fun. Still sore from it, maybe. Like, that was one of those things, like, yep, that's just not going to be my thing. I'm more of a beach guy. I'll go to the beach instead of the mountains.
I wonder if we ran a poll, and I think older at 35 older, because as I learned a few years ago when I tried to play a pickup basketball game and cracked my ribs, what if you had to do something? If we had to make you do something physical, what would you rather do? Play a pickup basketball game or go ice skating? What are you more terrified of doing that can result in serious? Because I've seen older men, and again, when I say older, I'm not like 35, 40, because again, your body's starting to wear down a little bit. Like, just grab a rebound, and all of a sudden your Achilles pops, and next thing you know, you're on one of those little scooters rolling around, and you're out for like 8 months, and there's rehab involved, and you didn't mean to do anything.
But at least you're on your feet in that game and not on these little thin things that could really slice. Like, I read an article recently, I guess an NHL goalie one time got caught with the skate, like on the ice.
Well, I'm not saying
like all this blood came out.
I'm not saying play,
and he was back
anything.
playing in 10 days.
But hold on, I'm not saying play. I'm talking about just go down to in the winter when they have the little skating rink right down here,
Right.
and you've got to get out on skates and you got to do, I don't know, 10 laps or something.
Okay.
And it's not
That would be a close vote, I bet.
I mean, because that ice is, will you fall on that?
Right.
And
You feel it.
It's not comfy.
Right. But you can layer up.
You can layer
And you
but you can layer up for a pickup basketball
Yeah,
game,
but you
too.
can't control the other elements. You can't control the 9 other idiots that are out there, right? That's the problem with that.
You also can't control the other morons that are skating around with you. Look,
Okay.
it's
Are
not,
you saying
you're not the one bad skater with
This is not serene. You can't just knock everybody off.
Let me tell you something. We're in Columbia, South Carolina. You're not the one
Right.
bad skater with 15 other people zipping around having a good time. No, there's other dangerous elements to that skating rink when
So
you go
why don't
around.
you get that alternate poll question going right now at Will Gunter with 1L? What would you, if you had to do one of them, what would you prefer doing? Playing a pickup basketball game or 10 laps around the ice? Man, how long would it take me to go 10 laps? Do you have the option, Bill, when they bust up the ice skating rink downtown, to hug the rail the whole way
Yes,
around?
there is that.
Because I would need that.
But come on, isn't that
The entire way? Because I used to think roller rinks cheated because they only would have it like 2/3, and then you'd have these stretches where it was only like the bottom step where I was just knew.
you're basically
Busted.
just you've got kind of the spread eagle on the
right, like
on the skates
Right.
where the legs are out. You're just trying to
you got the danger zones.
Okay, all right, we'll put that out. If you're forced to do one physical activity past 35, is it pickup basketball? I would assume. And I should say you got to play kind of, because again, I have a competitive spirit, and in the pickup basketball game I got a little carried away. And I was only 32 or 33, and decided I was going to have a crossover, kind of get into the lane, expose myself in terms of going for a floater and exposing my ribs. And I ran into
You
somebody
paid for it.
older than me, and it was like somebody took a baseball bat and whacked me in the ribs. It wasn't until somebody like 3 days later, somebody's like, You still got problems? Yeah, you've probably cracked 2 ribs, and there's not a whole lot you can do for that.
That's one of those too, because it's every time you breathe, right? You get a little reminder. Oh yeah, that's still there.
And then somebody would hug you, and you're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, well, that's where you just go the stiff arm. I just try to employ that.
Just
in
give him the
everyday
fist
life.
bump. All right, I love you, but fist bump it right there.
Jamie Harton hitting us up on the Shepherd's Glass inbox this morning, responding to the Frank's Discount Tire poll question. What sport did you come to later on in life? I put the UFC on there and was talking about when I thought it came to popularity just a couple of decades ago. And Jamie says, actually, it was fairly big in the early 90s, took a lot of heat for being too brutal, no holds barred, much more like a tough man contest. It faded away until Dana White took it over and made it what it is today, then went to UFC.com. It tells me 1993 is when the UFC was officially born. So that's, 25 years old. So you had to come to that to somewhat later on in life if you are of a certain age. Interested in hearing more from you on this thing. Richard and Tommy would like to weigh in, I see, on the Love Chevrolet phone lines. We'll start with Richard right now at 803-404-6100. Hello, Richard.
Hey, man, how are y'all?
Doing good. You're here to give us the benefits of stretching, or are you?
Yes, benefits.
Okay.
Did you know that I read an article not too long ago in a magazine that said, hey, when you put your foot flat on the surface, like you see a lot of runners stretch, and they lean forward on that calf, like up against something, like kind of like a stand-up push-up. Did you know a man over 40 is, if the article was correct, is 60% more likely to pop his Achilles by doing that? Now, the way they say to do it now is put your heel on the floor and pull your toes back up towards you.
Okay. 60% more likely than he would be if he wasn't even attempting that stretch, I'm guessing, is what you're telling me?
I guess. I don't know.
Right.
I mean,
it's a great stat, though. Either way, great stat.
I guess that's just somebody who had just sat in the emergency room and just took stats, I suppose. I don't know.
Good idea. I think we can all. I see that now. I'm doing it with my own foot. I'm pulling the toes up instead of doing the old school stretch. Let's hear what Tommy has to say on the Love Chevrolet phone lines. Good morning, Tommy.
Hey, man. I think the key to stretching is your T-band. You got to stretch your hips and your T-band. It's the key to life. I'm doing it right now as I drive my son to school. It's very exciting. Not good for driving, though.
Well, help me out with the T-band.
Well, you take your leg up and you bring it over your body while your torso is stretching the other way. You're on the ground on your back. Very, very important. Real quick, the expanse of sports has been phenomenal. When ESPN came out, and then TBS, I was watching every Braves game. I almost didn't graduate from high school. But the key is, this past weekend, I'm in Albuquerque at a wedding, my wife's family and the Green family, and the reception was at the Sandia Casino, which was fun for everyone. But the next morning, I'm sitting there, the Carolina game's on for the spring game. I'm sitting there on my iPhone, on PlayStation View, watching it and showing it around, big sports fans. And then I'm like, hey, let's look at a game, MLB.TV. So at bat, I'm sitting there saying, well, let's watch a game last night. You're a Yankees fan, boom. Here's the games. Not only that, guys, the minor league system, I have the apps for that, and I pay for it. It's $49 a month. Every Columbia Fireflies game you can see right there on your iPhone, including anybody else. If you have a guy in AA that you want to follow locally or otherwise, AAA, single A, they've got games on there. So the expanse of knowledge and shows is phenomenal. So that's just my comment on it, and I like the topic. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tommy. Appreciate the phone call there. Sounds like he's operating a one-man worldwide leader from his phone. He's got it all.
Yeah, 49. Did he say 49 a month?
That's what I heard. That's what stuck with you
That's
as well.
dedicated.
Good for him, man. But that was my point. If you want to see it, you can see it these days. And that does change the conversation when you're talking about coming to things later in life. We'll continue that conversation with you as we roll on. What do you got?
The poll question. I put the poll question up. If you're 35 or older, let's see here. Let me make sure.
You had to do one of them.
And you have to do one of them to avoid injury. What do you choose? Play pickup basketball or 10 rounds or 10, let's see, you're 35 and older and forced to do one physical activity. Which would you rather do to avoid injury? Play pickup basketball, 10 laps of ice skating.
Wanted to get to Ray on the Love Chevrolet phone lines as well. He'd like to weigh in on today's alternate poll question from Bill Gunter over there. If you had to do one thing, What would you choose, Ray? Play pickup basketball or 10 laps on an ice hockey rink?
Well, having done both, I would prefer basketball. Because I can tell you now, standing up on skates at my age ain't happening.
Well done. That's exactly how I voted, Ray.
But see, all right, so you played the pickup basketball. You've got the one guy out there who thinks it's Game 7 of the NBA and the World Championship.
No. If you got 5-on-5, you got at least 3 guys who play that way typically, right? Unless you know all of them and you guys have an understanding. The likelihood, if you just go to a random pickup basketball game in the ages between, 25 and 55, you got, I think, a solid 30% of guys out there who are trying way, way too hard. The hustler is what I referred to that guy back in the day.
I mean, don't you like the guy? If you have to play defense, the guy who's way too excited is running all over the court and yelling at other people. That's the guy you like. If you get stuck guarding him, you just want to karate chop him in the throat. And
Look,
man,
you put that correctly. If you have to play defense, which you do not have to do in a pickup game, you just run around.
But that's
you stay in front of the guy maybe a little bit. You throw a hand out there. You try to get a block shot. You don't get it. You let him score.
That's what I'm saying. That's the one guy that you get the ball and he's like over aggressive and he pokes you in the eye.
Mm-hmm. And then it's not a friendly game. You got some reaction via the Shepherd's Glass inbox?
I got two in. Let's see. So Thomas weighs in and he says, "Come on, man. Seriously, you scared of some pickup hoops? I'm 38 and already played ball twice this week." So
Thomas plays all the time and he's good and he's still in shape. That's not fun.
Chad Jones weighs in. Gave up pickup ball at age 31. Too many old guys that wanted to relive their glory days, box you out, take you out on a fast break. Nope. Church league was the worst.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed completely. That almost makes me want to pick the skating in this thing.
That's what I'm saying. Skating, you kind of can avoid everybody. Yeah, the skates, you're going to be sore the next day, but pick up basketball, man. There's those 2 or 3 guys that get confused. Clemson Sean with a pretty good one in. This actually might qualify for the hot take of the week. He says, cigars and drinks at night make me think Bill couldn't do 10 laps, play basketball, or walk to his car after the show without pulling a hammy. Emery replies, but Bill, a pickup basketball game with a 55-year-old, not so dangerous. Beg to differ. Those 55-year-olds, man.
Depends on the intensity level.
There's some of those guys, and they start to sweat a little bit, and one of them wants to, D you up a little bit hard. That doesn't go well. I mean, I'm telling you, man, just the younger generation. Like, the guys in their 20s that when they go to play a pickup game, generally they're pretty calm and relaxed. Like, all right, we're just coming off of some kind of career. I'm just going to stand out here and shoot threes. I got to worry about what I'm doing tonight. It's as you get into your mid-30s, late 30s, 40s, those are the guys that all of a sudden take it very seriously. Again, there's usually the jackrabbit guy out there who wants to, run all over the court, and usually you end up having to D him up, and he's way, way too fired up. There's the former athlete who didn't quite make it and wants to prove to everybody. And then you got the coach out there. Well, those are your 3 people, right?
Pretty much.
The coach guy who's telling everybody, he's calling out some kind of play. You're coming down, you're like,
don't forget the guy who does the dirty work. There's always one of those guys. He's already got in his head he's a rebounder and a screen setter, and he's going to go out there with those goals in mind. He's going to fulfill those goals.
Yeah.
And you got to stay away from that guy.
And that's the goal. That's true. That's the guy that's usually got the strongest, the toughest, the boniest elbows.
And he takes pride in setting screens.
We ought to do that. That's going to have to be a poll question. What is the pickup? Which guy is most annoying in pickup basketball? Is it calls foul guy? Is it coach guy?
Oh, man.
Is it over energetic guy, or is it glue guy?
There's a lot of guys out there. One guy who will never be replicated is Mike Leach, the head coach of Washington State football. At it again. Spring practice is going on. Last night, he just went off as only Mike Leach can do. This should make you smile.
Tracked a raccoon one time in the snow. I was in a neighborhood, and I was just curious where this raccoon lived, there's fresh raccoon tracks, and he'd been digging in somebody's garbage. So I followed the tracks, and I don't even know if these people know it, but he lives right in the back of their house in a bunch of brush and trees, approximately where he's at. A huge owl, which I see the hawks, foxes, coyotes. I saw a coyote in my neighbor's front yard. A quail. Now in snow, if you walk up on the quail and they're under that snow, they'll lift up right in front of you, and it scares the hell out of you. Walked up on a herd of deer in one of the pastures one time. Seen pheasants, but not a lot. Rabbits, yeah, a lot of rabbits.
Consider yourself a pretty good tracker then, huh?
Well, if it's just blatantly obvious and it snows, I mean, it's like, it's like on a cartoon or something. I mean, it's just blatant tracks. But I was curious, it was residential enough. I was curious where this sucker lived, and so I walked about half a mile out of my way to sort that out, But it was a fairly residential area, and I was just curious where a raccoon would live.
How far have you ever gone out of your way
to avoid something?
Never been curious like that?
So here's my question about that. Did you hear all he just named off all those animals? Mm-hmm. Was he living somewhere where all the animals were deaf? Because have you ever walked up
scattered,
all right,
right?
Take what he just said. Mm-hmm. He's in snow. Have you ever walked on snow? There's a crunch. Mm-hmm. All right, there's a crunch. In other words, how do you randomly walk up on a quail who all of a sudden lifts up and it scares you? How do you walk up on a herd, not a singular deer, a herd of deer, and all of a sudden they run? We got professional tracker Mike Leach out there. What does he do in his spare time?
Well, there's another famous story out there where clothes were optional. So maybe he's not wearing snow boots. Maybe he's going bare feet.
It should be a crunch. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a crunch to the snow when you're wandering through. Now, also,
not when you're one with the earth, like Mike Leach.
What exactly? I saw a snake the other week, and I was on the dock, and it was kind of to get to it. I had to
Hey, you took a picture. You got close enough to take a picture. See,
yeah.
I never even got that close.
I only had my margarita to fend it off with. And I wasn't going to use that to fend him off with. That was mine.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to have an issue if he came after me. I had to contemplate whether I was going to throw the margarita at him or just jump in the lake. And
no.
I was going to take a chance with the lake, I guess.
Really? That was the exit plan?
It's a pretty good margarita.
No, I mean the lake. Snakes are pretty good in lakes.
Again, there was two options.
I
guess there was three. Run backwards, throw the margarita at him, or jump in the lake.
I go to the run backwards.
Run backwards again could have resulted in injury. 35, man.
Spilling a drink.
And
that drink was going to be, there you go.
Speaking of injury.
Just chug the drink and make it to the lake.
82% of you going with play pickup basketball to avoid injury instead of going 10 laps on the ice skating rink. 44% of you went with the sport that you came to later in life. Soccer beats out hockey and the UFC. You feel good after this show?
Man, I'm ready to go play some hockey.
I'm ready to go.
Pick up hockey.
No.